unity forever. We shall always fight for our rights.
Of the greatest Nigerian people,
Grace.
This is the press conference of the Lagos State African Action Congress on the xenophobic attacks in South Africa against Nigerians and other African nationals in South Africa. We title our press statement as "Impunity has come home to roost." Nigerians are in further pains. We have been in pains for decades now over loads of issues, but we are in further pains at this moment over the recent xenophobic attacks in South Africa. Many are really angry at what is happening to Nigerians, killed and their properties burned and looted in South Africa. As we speak, angry youths are planning clampdowns and are already protesting against companies owned by South African business elites like MTN, ShopRite and Co. in Nigeria. Xenophobia is the movement when nationals attack those seen as foreigners over socio-economic and political issues. Mass unemployment and poverty is blamed on foreign business as well as immigrants. Xenophobia is a situation where the issues are not really addressed, but blame games are put on the wrong parts. And this is why we are here, to not only solidarize with Nigerians that are being killed in South Africa, but to also put the issues in proper perspectives. For South Africa and Nigeria, the mass unemployment and poverty is very close. We have a situation where, as at the first quarter of 2019, unemployment in Nigeria rose from 18.8% in 2018 to 23.1%. In South Africa, unemployment has risen to its all-time high of 29.0%. These statistics of both countries are disgraceful and embarrassing, and they show why there are xenophobic attacks in all of these countries. We have a situation where in Nigeria and South Africa, massive child courtism have risen. In Lagos alone, millions of youths are child courtists today. Millions of youths are thugs. Both South Africa and Nigeria are not only rich countries in terms of the gross domestic product per capita, that's the GDP per capita. Both South Africa and Nigeria have stickingly wealthy billionaires who are keen on the services sector and the privatization of public resources that has made most of the youths to be unemployed and dependent on self-prosperity. You have a situation today that 5 Nigerians, Michael Tedola, Aliko Dangote, Folarunsho Alakija, Absamad Rabiu, are richer than the whole of 198 million people. We also have a situation where Dangote himself alone is richer than any individual in the whole of Britain. So we have enough way to even keep Nigerians in Nigeria. Why they only travel abroad just to enjoy themselves and live side by side with Nigerians? We also have a situation where Cyril Ramaphosa, the current president of South Africa, who was a pauper during the apartheid battles, has grown to become a stickingly wealthy billionaire who also controlled companies like Lomnin that helped to kill South Africans in the Marikana massacre. We have situations today where both in Nigeria and in South Africa, many youths are depending on bet shops. And that's why you see that today in Nigeria we have several betting shops. Bet Naija, Bet Ondo, Bet Lagos, and you even have a situation where there are also betting toilets. In South Africa too, so many South Africans do not have jobs, as we can see in the statistics. We also have a situation where so many South Africans depend largely on goodwill of family members and others to survive. The system that we are operating in South Africa and Nigeria is the capitalist system that lied to us over demand and supply. But we have seen it, that this system only grow xenophobia, this system only grow ethnicity, this system only grow Boko Haram, this system grow terrorist groups and some other organizations. The system of demand and supply keep us more divided than united. I also want to address a cogent issue, and that's the issue of the land question. We have a situation today where we can see in the videos and we can hear some South African youths who have been misdirected, believing that South Africa belongs to them. I want to quickly remind those South African youths that there is no part of the world where masses own the land. In South Africa, the South African land does not belong to South Africans. It belongs to Cyril Ramaphosa, Jacob Zuma, and very few goons. It does not belong to South Africans. If the land in South Africa belongs to South Africans today, many South Africans will not be transferring their aggression to even poor, wretched Nigerians who are only trying to live on few crumbs that we have. The situation today is that a few people are casting home the trillions and billions while they leave very minute millions for billions of us to scramble for. So we in the African Action Congress posit today that it is the system of greed and power that is putting both Nigeria and South Africa on the cliff edge. Both Nigeria and South Africa have stickingly wealthy billionaires who are keen on the service sector and the privatization of public resources. That's made most of the youths to be unemployed and dependent on self-prosperity. We have a situation today where the rulers and business class that are causing the poverty and unemployment are very good in diverting the issues. In Nigeria recently, people who are ordinary citizens who have been living on the transport system, what we popularly call the Okada riders, traveled about 123 of them all the way from Jigawa State to Lagos to try to find a good or better living conditions. But what did we see? The Lagos State government, in its xenophobic behavior, arrested all of these 123, and they almost sent all of them to Kirikiri and some other unscrupulous prisons that they sent innocent Nigerians to. We also find a situation today in Lagos where street trading have been turned illegal, but ShopRite and some other shops that are owned by South African and Nigerian business elites are seen as the only legal businesses. Whereas most of these businesses are businesses that are being paid for by AMCON and the banks, and also from the purse of the federal government in Nigeria. In Lagos here, famously, a governor of Lagos once asked some people who are no Lagosians to go back to their houses. We're also finding it in Kano, in Port Harcourt, and a lot of other citizens or other cities where the rulers are trying to put division and impose the thinking of xenophobia into the mass of Nigerians. We have a situation today in Nigeria to where a lot of French nationals from Francophone Africa, West Africa especially, from Benin, Togo, are in Nigeria for one or two of their labor. Just because these West African countries have been decimated and destroyed by not only Nigerian businessmen, but by also African businessmen in general. In South Africa, on the 13th of August in Johannesburg, police officers, this year, 13th of August, this year, 2019 in Johannesburg, police officers arrested hundreds of African nationals and packed them like sending to court without real legal engagements. They trampled on their rights. And an NGO, the African Diaspora Forum, famously put it as such, that the arrests are xenophobic, chaotic, brutal, inhuman, and illegal. Why we try to compare these two issues of the Jigawa Okada riders arrested in Lagos and the African nationals arrested in Johannesburg is this: when the ruling class destroys a country, they try to make sure that people who are trying to survive are the major enemies. We can find it in United States today, where Donald Trump is saying that African slaves and some other Africans, people from Mexico, are the ones destroying United States. Whereas Donald Trump and the other businessmen grew to wealth by trampling on the rights of the poor, by stealing from the general wealth of the masses. It is on this note that we proceed. In conclusion, that the Lagos AAC believes that the South African civil society, we call on the South African civil society, the South African labor movement, and the South African radical parties, especially the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, and the South African Communist Party, and also the South African Workers and Revolutionary Party, that all our comrades should rise and lead political actions against the neo-fascists that are being used by South African leading politicians to kill Nigerians and divert the issue from the fact that it is Ramaphosa and some other people within the ANC that are stealing the billions that is meant for the employment and for the welfare of the average South Africans. We also call on Nigerians to face our rulers here. Yes, the Nigerian rulers are the ones stealing the wealth of Nigerians and not some other people from any other country. We are very sure that all the companies you can find today that looks like South African countries in Nigeria today are jointly owned by South African business goons and also the Nigerian business goons. We call on Nigerians, therefore, that we should not partake in both their internal and external wars, that we should all band it together and join the Revolution Now hashtag and actions, which we are going to continue with the third day of rage on September 18 and also on October 1st, that we should all come together and fight to make Nigeria a country of prosperity, where everything we own can be for everybody and not for a few billionaires and a few people who do not do anything but to live on the wealth and the sweat and the blood of 99.9% of Nigerians today who are suffering. We know that both the business and ruling class in Nigeria and South Africa are united in oppressing the masses while blaming the results on the same working people that are struggling to survive. The Lagos AAC hereby posits that the thugs who attacked and are maiming Nigerians in South Africa today are doing such in the interest of a few rich and big politicians in South Africa. Majority of South Africans are against these attacks. Our response as Nigerians is to hold our useless government and greedy rulers responsible for whatever attacks on our immigrants. I want to also reiterate, in the words of Omoyele Sowore, few days before his arrest, when that woman was killed in South Africa, that if Nigerian rulers had not been useless, some of the useless politicians and rulers in other countries would not be attacking our people. Also, we know that the president of Nigeria himself has been saying a lot of hate words against Nigerians. So it becomes natural when people in other climes use hatred against us. We remember famously that he went to Germany and called Nigerian women as people who are only useful in the kitchen. And not knowing that the independence that was fought for in Nigeria today were majorly led by women movements. By Funmilayo Ransome Kuti led the Egba women revolt, the Gambo Sawaba led women revolt in the north, and the Margaret Ekpo led revolts in the Aba women in 1929. We also want to say, finally, that we have gotten to the point that we do not have any hiding place for us. If we run to South Africa, we are also going to meet the same problem that we are running away from Nigeria. If we run to China, the same problem is also a global problem. So we urge Nigerians to finally settle our mind so that we make Nigeria a country that we want to be, a country that we are running to in diaspora. Nigeria can be our own better country without running to other countries. But nobody should criminalize moving around the world, because there is no part of the world that belongs to anybody. Whether you are a Chinese in China, you do not own China. It is owned by the ruling class in China. Whether you are a Briton in Britain, you can see it today. When the Parliament of Britain wanted to belong to the majority of British people, Boris Johnson, Queen Elizabeth, and some other museum rulers decided to close the Parliament and turn Britain to their own coffers. We can also see it in the United States. A country that is called a country of democracy is being ruled today by a mustached, ugly mustached, Napoleonic Adolf Hitler in the person of Donald Trump. In Brazil, where the people have been a great people under Lula, the people themselves are having some welfare or the other. Jair Bolsonaro has come to the place, and we can see the fire he has put on Amazon. What this generally means is that globally and nationally in Nigeria, there is fire on the mountain. There is nowhere to run to except to run to one particular place, and that is the place of revolution. And that is why we continue to clamor for revolution now. Nigerians should rise from their houses, from their streets, from their cities, from the towns, to stand up and say, we can build another Nigeria where there will be free, quality, and compulsory education at all levels. We can build another Nigeria where there will be free, compulsory, and advanced healthcare at all levels. We can build another Nigeria where unemployment will be reduced to 0%. We can build another Nigeria today where we will return to a situation where the industries will become us, and they will not be privatized and put in the pocket of just a few.